Happy Friday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of You've Gotta Be Sha Tinning Me. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Matt Carlson. Matt, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. I think we're continuing the trend of me realizing that betting anything but Hong Kong is not for me. Like I just shouldn't do it, right? It's like I make money at Happy Valley and just donate it back to the ethos. So I think it's good. I think I'm repatriating gambling money in a way. So, propping up the economy. But
Yeah, Keeneland's been an absolute just disaster for me.
I mean,
Like,
yeah, it's been bad. So I
you
don't
know,
know.
I think my biggest score is I finished second in a contest, a $12 contest, or how much was it? Maybe it wasn't $12. Maybe it was like $24. Like it was like some weird number that like not like one of the big contests, like one of like the weird like live contests that never fill. They only get like 12 people in it. And I was just trying to spite Caleb, so I mushed his entire tournament. I forgot what he said. He said something that upset me. I mean, not really upset me, but like, and so that's how I got back at him. Is I mushed his, and I got second place. So shout out to Caleb. But yeah, it's been a bloodbath outside of sports betting apparently, which I mean I think just kind of does tie into your whole thing that I shouldn't bet anything besides Sha
Hmm.
Tin. Because Matt, I think we need to discuss this real quick because a friend of ours in one of our chats mentioned how windy it was going to be in Chicago, and the wind was going to be blowing out at Wrigley Field, and I live, you know 45 minutes outside of Chicago, and yeah, it's been windy as hell, and we've been getting 40-mile-an-hour gusts, like it's crazy, and so I was like, I like this. And so, I cocked up a little parlay, and you decided to take that as I'm going to bet the 5 inning over.
Well, because the other thing that was mentioned in that chat was how poorly these starting pitchers have done recently and how many quote unquote barrels they've been giving up, et cetera. So was like, okay, if I'm going to comp this over, right? I think the over for the game was like 11 and a half or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm like, okay, if the starting pitchers haven't done well and it's windy, right? Stack that early. And I'll take the over in 5 innings of 6.5 runs, which to anyone that wants to, look at the box score of that game, the first 5 innings had 3 runs. I think it was two to
Mm-hmm.
one after the fifth inning. So my bet did not cash. And of course, the game ended in a what was it, 13-12. So 25 runs in that game. So the last 4 innings had 22 runs. And I could not hit an over 6.5 in 5 innings.
One team
So
scored 10 runs in 1 inning.
so again, right? Like I should not bet anything, right? Whether I'm stupid or cursed or both. Like clearly I know nothing about gambling except for this very niche product where I either have to wake up at 6 in the morning or stay up till 1 in the morning to play it. So somebody
Yeah.
joked my grandkids are going to be asking, why does grandpa stay up so late? It's like, I don't know. It's just, this is the only thing that works for me. So don't ever take any advice from me on anything except maybe this. Even then, probably not. But,
Yeah. I was just laughing because I was so disgusted as well that I turned it off. And like I had done it was funny because I had done all kinds of like weird stuff. I think I had like 3 parlays on it. And then I just had one guy to score to hit a home run. But I had two of the Cubs players, I think it was Suzuki and Tucker, to hit home runs. And they actually went back to back in an inning to hit that parlay. I had the over, which was 11 and a half, which I thought was nuts, but they hit that. And then I had the Cubs money line. But did I use both those players in the parlay? No, I only used one of them. So if I use both of them, I mean we're talking box cars. But I also, funny enough, I used the Cubs starting pitcher over 3.5 strikeouts. He threw 5. So I was like, I hit everything. I hit every single thing. It was insanity, and I would have not even looked because I was so, like I said, I was so disgusted in like the sixth inning when it was still 2-1 that I actually had to go pick up my groceries, and that's a whole nother story with the surprise I got from that. But yeah, it wasn't until like I got a Discord notification from somebody saying like basically like, wow, like you got it. I think it was actually a Trump gift I got. And yeah, freaking both those guys went yard, and yeah, it was about a $750 day. So that's nice. That erases a lot of sins. And I was looking. There's a small chance that I actually go to this year's Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone reached out to me asking me if I wanted to go, and I said I'm available. But then I said I got to like assuming I can get a room somewhere, and you know it's tough, Matt. When I always have a problem with hotels nowadays because I'm not someone who's used to paying for hotels. I go to Vegas a couple times a year. That's usually where I go. And if I go anywhere else, usually it's on work or something like that. I never pay for a hotel in Vegas. So when I see $300 a night for a hotel, I'm like, you got to be out of your mind,
Should start checking
um,
Saratoga hotels in the summer. It'd be
dude. I mean, so the same thing happened. A friend of ours, I mean, Mark Hapitan, who I do the show with, he bought um, Belmont seats. He bought like a bunch of them. Because he didn't know what he wanted, right? So he bought, I think, like 4 clubhouse seats, and then he bought like I think he might have gotten a box or he tried to get a box. I don't know. He bought a couple different things, and so Caleb and his dad are gonna go, and they asked me to go, and I was like, let me look into it, and then they told me how much they paid for their Airbnb, and I'm like, man, like it's just tough, man, because like, and I think this is a gambler thing, like Matt, like I mean, you and I, we don't really talk handle numbers or anything like that. But like, if I were to tell you like, hey, like if you were to gamble on, let's say Derby weekend, right, or whatever a big weekend for you is, maybe it's not Derby, maybe it's Breeders' Cup or something like that, right? And you gambled like, I don't know, $500, $600 that weekend, right? Like that's a big weekend, right?
yeah,
Uh, anywhere between that to $1,000. Like that's a
yeah,
huge,
yeah,
huge. That's
yeah.
a lot. That's like heavy
Yeah,
gambling, right?
that's what I'll like plan for, right? Like
Yeah.
that's but that's a big weekend, right? Otherwise, I'm not hitting that on any weekend now. Maybe I used to, but definitely not now.
And like the thing is right, like you lose that money, and like I'm not gonna say you don't sweat, like obviously you want to win all the time, right? But it's like, whatever, right? But then
Yeah,
it's like
right.
but then it's
Exactly.
like, wait, I gotta spend $1,000 for a hotel for that weekend? Forget that. I'm not spending $1,000 on a hotel. Are you kidding me? And maybe it's because like as gamblers, like every dollar that we spend that's not spent gambling is basically money coming out of the gambling budget, right? Like, because like I'm thinking about Derby, right? I'm like, well, shit. If I'm spending $900 on the room, like that's $900 I could have spent. I could have spent gambling, like so. I don't know. I got to see. Normally I would beg and plead my friends who live locally out there to see if I could stay with them, but unfortunately, they're actually going to be out of town that week, and so they normally host a derby party. So like I would have probably been good to stay there if outside of it, but yeah. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was a good day. Briefly, I'll mention the uh, weird thing that happened to me at the grocery store. Um, I placed an order for pickup. I had a couple odds and ends pick up for Easter. I saw that they had standing rib roast on sale, $6.99 a pound. I ordered a small roast. Matt, you know how big the roast I got ended up being. But if I were to ask you, how big is a small roast? What would you say?
Yeah, two bone, like what, maybe 4 to 5 pounds, something like that on a good side, right? But yeah,
Yep. They gave me a 14 and a half pound roast.
Somebody somebody
That
saw
thing
you
was
hit
still
that parlay.
vacuum sealed. That thing was still vacuum sealed. They must have known I was going to hit that parlay because that was before. I was so I was like so in like just like I didn't know what to do, you know. And then my wife's like, How much did you just spend on meat?" My wife being a vegetarian, of course. She's like, "How much did you spend on meat?" That was a $90 cut of meat. And yeah, luckily the parlay ended up paying for for that ribeye. But yeah, it's just like what a wacky freaking day, man. Um, but you know, when I think of wackiness, right? I mean, this card, Matt. I mean, I see. I mean, it's not the Sha Tin all weather card, but it might as well be a Sha Tin all weather card because there's a heck of a lot of all weather races on this card.
Yes, there is. They're I think they're saving the surface for next weekend where they have the big racing going on. So, they're smart in what they do. They plan these things out. But yeah, you get a lot of dirt this weekend and prep for some big races next weekend. So,
Yep. So we're gonna start with the dirt race here, all weather, 1,200 meters, the Siuma Shan Handicap. We're going to be going 1,200 meters here, Class 3 racing. And we got a full field of 12 here. Um, you know, I'm guessing I'm not going to be too crazy here. I think Must Go. Must Go looks really good in this spot. This is definitely an all-weather horse. This is the horse that's been on the all-weather last 5 starts. He's got 4 wins on the all-weather in 13 starts here, with 3 seconds, right, and a third in. I mean, this is a very very consistent horse. Maybe a little bit concerned about the pattern, right? It seems like maybe every other type horse, and you're kind of on the off part of the pattern, but I don't know. This just seems to me like the best horse in this field. My guess is he's going to be your favorite. I think he's going to be kind of lukewarm. You know, like maybe you'll get around like 3 to 1 on this horse, and I would consider that pretty fair at 3 to 1 on this horse. But yeah, I thought that the last couple races he's looked pretty good. I think the 1,200 meters suits him very very well. They've tried him a little bit longer occasionally, but and he's drawn well too, right? I mean, not that draw plays a huge part in these dirt races, but he's drawn in the 4 post, right? So you're not going to have to worry about him, at least being super wide, right? Trying to gain some position, because he does seem like a horse that wants to be at least a little bit up on the pace, right? He doesn't like he doesn't want to be closing all the way from the back. He wants to be 2, 3, maybe 4 lengths off of it. So yeah, I really like the 3 Must Go. And then the only horse I have as a B is actually the 2 Mask Rider. And this is a horse that on debut, won at a pretty big price. Um, Next time out, was drawn well again, and I think got I don't know why, but the horse got put up to seventh. Looked like a horse that was kind of poorly placed and just kind of faded. Um, Race 2 back actually looked pretty good. Horse kind of had a little baby Z pattern there, and was able to get within a half length of the winner. So it rallied pretty well. And then last time out, just kind of faded. Didn't seem all that great. But what I like about this horse, the horse gets Brittany Wong, right? We're gonna lose 10 pounds there due to the allowance right away, and I don't know. I think this is a horse that kind of wants to be involved early. Um, I think if you look at the win, right, that race was basically dueling on the lead, and then was able to win that way. I don't know if it was the horse didn't break really well, or if it was tactics. The 3 back where the horse was kind of off of it a little bit. Um, but yeah, even the last couple, was off only like maybe 1, 2 lengths. Was still kind of close on the pace, but maybe this is just kind of like a need to lead type, or at least like wants to be dueling, right? And you're getting Brittany Wong, and I mean, the, you got to hope the one plan that she's got is she's going to get this horse out of the gate clean and go. We've talked about the statistics, right? Brittany Wong, you look at her stats and it's like, oh, great, she's only got 12 wins, right? I think all 12 of those wins are either on 1200 meters on the dirt, 1200 meters on the turf, or 1000 meters on the turf. She might have a win, maybe going 1600 there somewhere, but the majority of her wins are in those in these short sprint races, and she's shown that she's more than competent. I think she's like a 12 or 14% rider in those situations. So yeah, I think that you might get a slight little move up here with this horse. And probably does need to improve a little bit, but hopefully being a little bit more aggressive. Mask Rider gets involved early, and maybe we can pull up the upset a little bit. But I'm gonna use the 3 Must Go as my lone A, and the 2 Mask Rider as my lone B. Matt, where did you land?
Yeah, my notes for this were actually I said I would be surprised if you didn't have Mask Rider as an A, and I'm surprised you don't. But that you would probably talk about this horse before I did. So I'm glad you covered all the points that I was going to cover. I really like Mask Rider in this spot. I don't think there's a lot of speed signed on in this race, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you. It's kind of a weird dirt race in that you have a lot of like closers, and I don't know that you really want to bet a dirt closer in here. Like they're all going to try and be jockeying at the back. And I think Brittany Wong just steals it, right? You've
Mm-hmm.
seen her do that a bunch of times before. The only other speed in here maybe is Victory Moments, but for having a bug like Ellis Wong is not a great dirt jockey at all. Like I don't think he's had a win in the past year on dirt. So look, I think Brittany Wong just goes, and I think she steals this race up front. And pretty confident in playing that horse. I think that's probably where my primary money would go in here, is through her. Because, like you said, right, she has great stats on dirt. That's what she does, and I think she kind of gets set up for it here too. So that was kind of where my eyes went. The only other horse that I did want to use as an A in here, just kind of based on some muddied up form and a good draw, was the 12, Mr. Energia. I think both dirt races that he's run have been really impressive, right? Granted, they were down in class 4, but he's kind of broken from way outside. He's, had to close in from way out there, right? If you look, he's been sitting in, both those races, he was sitting in 10th and closed in, wants to win, wants to finish second. The impressive things, right? Like I said, wide draws, those are both slow paces, right? I think I have those even in class 4 as like some of the slowest paces that I've ever run on those configurations. And he was, either finishing second or beating horses that were at the front, right? So he was kind of running against the, flow of the race into those. Granted, again, at class 4, but to me, look, he's run 2 dirt races and they've both been really impressive. Maybe this is what this horse wants to do. So, Matthew Poon, granted, who's never won a dirt race, and the past year he's over the last 27, so it's not great. But hey, he's had some really good jockeys up. The classic jump is a question. But if I want a closer, hey, you're going to be sitting at low weight. You get drawn well finally, and both dirt races have been really nice. So I do think you get a lot of value into the 12, and I think I'll probably use it as an A just based on the price I think that you'll get kind of coming up through that. And so I want to use the 12 kind of as well in my plays. Then the only other horse that I thought I was willing to throw in just based on the decent trials was a horse first up in the 5, Master Champion. I don't know if I see it, but both, kind of the 3 trials that he's run have been pretty good. And just given kind of the field, maybe, right? Again, one of those that you never know how they're going to take to the track. And, maybe it's worth a value play. So I'll toss that one in as a B, but most of my money I think will be through Mask Rider, and probably Mr. Energia as well. So yeah, hopefully, and again, it's dirt, so anything can happen, but that'll kind of be where my plays are through here.
Nice. All right, let's move on. Race 9, the Niao Tao Cock Handicap. I probably didn't say that right whatsoever, but
We're gonna go with no, but that's okay.
yeah, that's fine. It's fine. Class 3 racing, 1200 meters on the turf. Where did you land here?
I thought this was a really tough race. I kind of defaulted to the 8 Super Infinity. I think just the races before kind of that layoff were really good. Kind of getting second up. In the race in December, he got checked horribly, and came up lame the next day, I think, because he got checked so bad. So that's kind of the reason for the time off. Last race wasn't too bad either, right? Came back and ran a respectable race. I'm hoping for kind of that second up progression, getting kind of back to the way that this horse was running. before. There are some concerns. I think, course doesn't have a win in class 3 at all, and so while those races have looked good, hasn't kind of been getting across the line first. So that's kind of the main concern. The other concern is you get Bentley up, who's not the best jockey, but I think just based on figs, the 8 will be kind of my primary play in here. Hoping that, again, he can kind of catch some of that form that he had before kind of that long break and before kind of that incident happened. Otherwise, a couple other horses that I will use. I think the 4 Pakistan Legacy is kind of the obvious default. Hey, Zach's up. Hey, it's 4th up. Granted, this horse is drawn bad. I don't think you get any value on this horse. Kind of reluctant to use it just because of that. But if he can overcome draw, I think you get an improving horse. Again, you do get Zach up, who's, the 30% jock running 1200, right? I mean, there's enough speed signed on in here where they can get that stalking trip. He's kind of shown some versatility, so we'll see. But I don't know what price you get on this. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Thank you. I'm glad you had that saved up. So there you go. That's exactly what this horse is, but I'll still use it. The only other horse that I thought could be interesting is the 1 Young Superstar. And I don't know what price you get on this, but I'm hoping that, again, kind of that muddied up form leads this horse to, kind of get lost in the shuffle. Had a couple races where I think both those last 2 have had excuses, right? If you look at the race 2 back, I mean, it was just I can't remember if it was the race 2 back or if it was the last race. I think it was the last race where he tries to cut in and just gets checked horribly, and because he gets checked horribly, has to kind of run 4 wide the whole way and just stops, right? I mean, the horse, kind of gets pulled up just because he has nothing left in the stretch. But I mean, he ran an extra 100 meters in there and, kind of with the check. I'm hoping people see that and they're like, oh, this horse is off form. He's not running well. He might be. That might be the case. But I'm willing to at least give it another shot because I do think those back races before that were good enough. Granted, I don't think he gets a setup in here, right? He's kind of a, wants to lead type, may even need the lead because you see the way he ran last time, right? Like he kind of got checked because he couldn't get the lead. He was trying to force a hole and get through and couldn't. But, again, this horse might just be faster, right? If he's still on the same form that he was, the figs fit, at least before kind of all that happened. So I'll use those 2 as a B, but reluctantly, most of my money will be through Super Infinity. I might have a ticket where I play it all in this race too, just as a, kind of a cheap filler, because I do think it's a tough race. I don't think there's any huge standouts in here.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting with Young Superstar. This is probably one I'll actually make a B. Um, the last 2 races, both of them came up in the racing incidents report, right? I think the one last out, right? You mentioned, right, weekend in the straight, and he kind of just, he had a check, and it just didn't look great, right? And he ended up finishing last. And then even the 1-2 back, it was kind of a slowish pace, but he kind of had an awkward start, and yeah, I don't know, it just didn't look good. And now you see that the horse has basically been laid up for 2 months, right? Which is kind of is a little bit of a breather for Hong Kong, right? They like to run their horses every 3 to 4 weeks, pretty regular cadence, right? Unless something's going on. So horse is kind of getting a little bit of a breather here and coming in here. And honestly, like any of the races, I think 3, 4, 5 back, I mean, they're pretty competitive, and this looked like a horse actually that was kind of improving, right? Um, and was kind of, if you're someone who likes looking at speed pro figures, right? This is a horse that was running 100s basically, and was pretty consistently running those 100s. The fastest horse in this race is my top pick. Is going to be the 3 Eris Nova, but this is a horse that's kind of peaked last time, right? It ran a 102. But I think maybe this is just kind of like I said, like maybe like an improving type, maybe one that they wanted. This is the distance they want to get at, and I mean, you kind of just cross a line through the last 2 races, right? He went 1650, 1400. Maybe they were just trying to get that weight down or get down into class. Like, I think this is what he kind of wants to do one last time out, and they're coming right back with it. And it is gaining 8 pounds, but I think he's drawn pretty decently here, and I think he makes a ton of sense, right? And then obviously the four Pakistan legacy. I hit you with the Zach Simple arm, but I mean that's kind of why I'm using this horse too. You kind of look at the horse's couple starts, and right, you got a couple of seconds there with Morera aboard, with Purton aboard. Ferraris gave it a try, and he did Ferraris things, but I think those two starts they look pretty good. I get a little concerned. I'm a little concerned about two things. One, the price, right? We'll see what we get. Maybe this is kind of a defensive B. Maybe I'll hit myself with a defensive B alarm for using this one. But actually, kind of three things. Two, the draw. The draw stinks,
Yep.
right? But three, like, I don't know. Like, I sometimes don't like to see horses like this, right? That finish second first time out and then take a step back. And like, sure, like, right, he finished second again last time. But is he just like, does he not like getting his picture taken? Is this just a horse that maybe is going to be kind of a hanger, doesn't want to win? I mean, he looks like he's if he takes a step forward from either of his third back or last race, and it doesn't even have to be a big step forward, just a little bit of a step forward, he wins, right? But this is a horse that like we haven't seen take the step forward, right? Kind of paired that first effort last time, right? Obviously went backwards that second effort, so right, like I think it's kind of like you were saying, like you got to think about the price, you got to think like obviously like if we're talking about single race, this is probably a horse that's going to be 5-2, probably going to be your favorite, 5-2, 3-1. I don't want to touch it at those odds, or if even shorter. This is a horse that I would want 5 or 6 to 1 on, right? Probably double the price he's gonna be, but I just don't think you're gonna get that. But horizontally, right, you got to think about things a little bit differently, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna use the three as my lone A. I'll use the one and the four as my Bs, and there wasn't really anything else in here that I was too interested in. And let's move on to race 10, the Ho Chung River Handicap, Class 3 racing, unicorn distance, the 1400 meters here, 7 furlongs, and I kind of got four horses in this race I like, and I don't know. I'm kind of curious how this board's going to end up, right? I think the number two, Another World. Uh, I mean, this is going to be your favorite, right? This is the horse that's going to be pushing even money, right? We're probably going to get, I don't know, 8-5, 7-5 on this horse here, and I think for good reason, right? This is the horse that is coming in here with very very good form. Um, was just a winning machine at class 4. And then, I mean, heck, at this track and distance, he's got 4 starts, 3 wins, and 1 second. I mean, get Zach aboard. There's nothing not to like here. Looking at Speed Pro again, I'm pretty sure this is your fastest horse. Like we're not gonna. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at this horse and be like, I want to use this horse. And I think this is a horse that's getting good at the right time. Is kind of progressively gotten faster and faster and faster. The only real other horse, there's only two other horses that have kind of run, I think, similar figures to this too, and so that maybe won't necessarily have to take a huge step forward to win here. But the one Juno Pride, obviously, is coming in here on back-to-back wins. I have him as a B though because I think maybe the draw is going to do him in here, and I think maybe if he is better drawn, he might uh, have more of a say in trying to be my top pick in here. But you kind of look back at this horse, right? This is a horse that has got great races, and it seems like whenever he's drawn out wide, he comes up just short, right? And I think there's such slim margins here, right? He's going to be carrying the high weight. He's drawn outside. I think it might just be a little bit too much to overcome. Um, but with the two Another World being in here, I think maybe you get a fair enough price on this one that you can use him. You know, he's gone off as a favorite the last two races, but I think you get closer to that 3-1, 4-1 on him than you do because of the horse another world in here. And honestly, Juno Pride's basically like it's like 1A almost here for these two horses. So I think Juno Pride makes a ton of sense. I have Beauty Crescent here, the 4, written down as a C, and this is more of a um, this horse has run as fast as other horses in this race, but he has absolutely not shown it the last couple times. And they tried 1,200 meters last time, which is not. I don't know. It doesn't seem like what he wanted to do there, but this is a horse that has yet to win here in Sha Tin. But man, does this horse love finishing in the money. 7 seconds, 6 thirds, right, in 29 starts. Um, and like he looks pretty good. So maybe this is a horse that you round out your trifectas and using a Quinella or something. But he does have some back figures that at least are in the realm of what I think the 1 and the 2 have run. So I definitely think he's in here, interestingly, and maybe doesn't necessarily have a shot to win, but I'll probably have at least one ticket with him on there just in case he decides to wake up and maybe he's able to break his maiden here. Um, Lastly, I guess I kind of want to turn it to you here a little bit because the 11 South Star, right? This is one of those horses that has gotten off to a pretty nice start, right? Started off with a fifth, took a step forward, finished second, and then won a nice race with that Xenia board, which maybe you improved because he's got the boat anchor on him, but um, you know he's drawn well here again, but he's up in class, right? And I mean, I don't know what he was necessarily running against earlier, and I really do think that the 1 and the 2, I mean, those are pretty serious horses, and I I don't think the 11 has run fast enough yet. However, the 11 also seems like he's improved every time. He's also a 3-year-old, and we know how quickly 3-year-olds can improve. So I thought he was pretty interesting. I'm just curious what price you're going to get, right? Because if I'm taking the top three choices in this, like the 11's probably the one I leave off, but I don't know. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts were on the 11.
I'm somewhat confused on the 11, to be honest with you. I think I agree with everything that you said in that if he runs the same race he ran last time, he should dominate this field, right? And even the first race he ran was pretty impressive and just on figs alone. Now granted, right, like part of what I do is I adjust figs for draw. And part of the problem with that, right, is when you do that, if a horse gets, a pretty good trip from a bad draw, figs can kind of look out of whack, right? Especially in class 4, right? And like you get a confluence of circumstances because I'm adjusting for weight and I'm adjusting for draw. And so if you beat a bad field from a bad draw and then move up in class, you look like a world beater. And maybe you're not, right? And so I'm always cognizant of that. And it's hard to, adjust that, by a computer, right? You just kind of have to look at it and say, okay, I'm, a little bit iffy on it. And the problem with that, right, is I think the middle race doesn't look all that impressive, right? The middle race in there, the second race he ran from the 2 post, granted he ran well, but the time just kind of looks pedestrian, right? And based on the class jump, probably doesn't do all that well in this field. So I don't know what you get out of this horse. And it's got my favorite jockey aboard, so who knows, right? I, I think you have to use it because I don't want to look stupid being like, oh, I, took a horse that just based on my figures maps out to win by 6 lengths and, punt it because I think my figures are wrong. I don't think this horse wins by 6 lengths, but I also think that, hey, he could just be a lot better than this field, right? To your point, he could be improving and, it'd be a stupid toss, but TBD, right? I'm confused on this how this one's going to run. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins by a couple lengths. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes distant 8th. So it'll be on my ticket, but the confidence is not there for what the numbers that I would normally pull suggest it should be. So TBD on that one. I think the couple other horses, right? I mean, I liked Beauty Crescent, and I think I get suckered into Beauty Crescent every time. I think, you mentioned, hey, you should use this horse underneath. Honestly, don't. I do think people kind of have the book on Beauty Crescent, right? When you were, over 29 with 13 seconds, people know what you want to do. And the betting community here is just incredibly savvy, and will use that horse underneath. Like you probably won't get value betting like a exacta slash forecast or anything like that on this horse, right? Because like people key that they know that this horse doesn't like winning. That said, I do think you get excuses for the last two, right? Like this horse is a 1400 horse. He's not a 1200 horse. I mean, it's not an anything horse because he hasn't won, but two back was yielding, didn't like the soft ground. Last out, just ran out of racetrack. This is what this horse wants to do, but granted, this is what this horse has been doing, and he hasn't won. So who knows, right? But I don't know what price you get on the win line. If he wins, finally, you'll get a price on him. If you try and play him underneath, I don't think you do. So yeah. Do keep in mind though, if you are live, right, you do get paid out for second in this race. So there is some value in this horse finishing second in the last race because you will get a 20% consolation on this ticket. So he might be a good use just from that perspective. And that if he can finish second, you will still get paid a little bit. Right. So there is value in using a second place horse in this last race, more so than if he was running in any other race in this card, except race 5. So yeah, keep that in mind, right? Just from a gambling perspective. It is weird, but that's the way they do it. The only other horse that I will use, speaking of savvy gambling communities, is the 7 Stellar Swift, right? I think I wanted to have this horse pegged last out because I'm like, look, this horse has gotten horrific draws, and finally he was drawn well, right? He was Alex Pouchin was aboard the whole time. He was drawn in the 14 post 3 straight times, then he had the 11, and finally got a good draw at Happy Valley in April. And that horse went off at 3-5, and he romped. But people are smart, right? Like they see bad draws and they know to adjust for that because that horse had been running, bad races from bad spots, and people knew to toss them out. I mean, 3-5 on that horse was ridiculous, but that's what you got, right? And so, great, it is what it is. I don't know what you get here, right? Obviously, he's drawn well again, and obviously, I think this horse can run well again and run competitive. Maybe this is a more competitive field and you get a more decent price, but hey, he's kind of back in the fold a little bit at least. So TBD, right? I think this race is pretty open. I am trying to get around Zach on the 2 in here. I don't think I want to use that horse just because given kind of the jump in weight, right? You're picking up 10 pounds, just doesn't map all that well. But if he runs well, right, maybe one of those horses that, runs better than the figures have suggested, I'll eat it, right? I'll lose. If that horse is favored, I really don't want a part of it. So I'll be 4, 7, and 11, probably pretty flat in this race. Just trying to get around Zach and again hoping I'm alive here. So.
All right, and obviously we dogged on, or I dogged on all weather racing, so clearly, I decided to take my best bet to an all weather race, which is race 1. You kind of mentioned this about, I think, race 8, but this is definitely a race that's devoid of speed, and I think the number 12, So Awesome, is probably is going to be your speed here. Now, obviously, he's shown his speed on the turf, and he does have a second going here in the all weather in 3 starts. But I like this horse coming back here to the all weather. Is going to be a pretty low weight, and is drawn very very well. Right, it's drawn right there in the 2 post. So yeah, I really like the 12. So Awesome. I think it makes a ton of sense. Wire to wire here. I don't know what price you're going to get on him, but honestly, I'd probably take 3-1, 4-1 on him pretty easily. But where did you kind of land here, Matt?
Yeah, so this is a weird race, and it's a weird race because I think horses like I still don't understand how Yay Boy, after hitting the board 4 straight races on all weather, is like at the bottom of Class 5. That doesn't make
I don't know.
any sense to me at all. But I went the opposite direction. So part of why I don't mind dirt racing in Sha Tin is because you just get such limited data. And I think that kind of propels me to want to look for horses that I don't know can't run on it yet, right? I want to look for horses that have value and try and like put in extra work and say, okay, can I see something that I don't think everyone else is going to see? And I think that's where you can find things here. And I think just because again you don't have that book of work on dirt, you get more of an opportunity. You don't know if horses are going to run, well or not run well. I went to the one. I don't know how to pronounce this horse. Decrelot, Decrelot. I have no idea how you are supposed to pronounce this horse, but if you look, what kind of keyed me into this horse are looking at trials and some of the comments that he's gotten on trials. So the last 3 races he's run have been on all weather. It says ran on strongly in the straight. It said things like moved better than before, made up ground when shifted out at the turn, right? So you see this horse, kind of running well. And if you say, hey, this horse is improving when running on all weather, and then you look up to the races and you say, hey, this horse really hasn't shown anything on the track. To me, that indicates a horse that, hey, maybe this horse is an all-weather horse or a dirt horse and not a turf horse, right? Maybe you'll get a horse that, wants this surface and looks really good on a surface that it hasn't run on yet in actual races. And oh, by the way, you're getting class drop on this horse, right? Like, granted, he hasn't shown anything in class 4, but this is class 5, right? This is the kind of bottom barrel of racing. And horses like that can tend to jump, right? I mean, you're just beating horses that clearly don't like winning because they're down in class 5. I think there's an opportunity here. And I think that stuff like that is what I like to look for. I think that's where you absolutely get value, is just kind of putting in that extra effort to say, okay, in trials or things like that, are there things that I can edge out that I think other people aren't looking at, aren't mapping in, be it a time, be it kind of performance, right? You just get that a little bit extra when it comes to dirt racing, because I think turf is just what everyone focuses on here. And so you tend to see prices because of that. So my play will be heavier through the 1 Decrelot, right? Again, that's not like a huge confidence play, right? This horse has run horribly, right? He's finished above, double digit, he's finished 10th, 14th, 14th, 11th, right? Finished 8th once. That was his best race. Yeah. But he's doing a lot of things different, and he's moving down in class, and he's shown some pretty good trials on dirt. So, give me that at a huge price. Hopefully a huge price. But yeah, that's where I'll go in here. I don't know if we want to put a beer on it. But
I mean, sure, why not?
you're betting a 4-1. I'm betting like a 50 to 1. But
I mean,
who knows?
I need to catch up at this point. So
that's true. I think we're at 3-2. So
yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about in this card?
no, I don't think so. I think my other quote unquote best bet was in race 2 and Top Dragon, but that horse is just going to be short, right? If you're looking for a likely winner, that's where I'd go. But eat your chalk a little bit on that. So maybe I'll play that double.
Well, that's going to do it for us here, and you've got to be Sha Tinning me. Check us out at onthewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Matt is at Slow and Steadied. He'll have his full card picks up, and he'll probably complain about something on the card and how he's not seeing it right, or I don't know. He'll tell you whether or not he likes the card or not.
The lower confidence I say I am, the better I do. So good luck, everybody.
Yeah, let's keep that low confidence going this week.